So, Namaste.
Namaste.
So, Vishal, a very happy Teachers' Day, and nice we have this question answer session on this Teachers' Day. And so, the question is that what is the difference between Ashtanga Yoga and Hatha Yoga?
Yes.
When we take Ashtanga Yoga, it belongs to Patanjali's, the whole Yoga Sutras, in which the Sadhana Pada, the practice portion, is where he has given the Ashtanga Yoga. But when you actually look at Patanjali, observe Patanjali's sutras, he looked at human being as essentially what you experience yourself. From that point of view that he has looked at, one is the prana, that is the activity which is directed outward, and another is the manas, which is an activity, chitta, activity directed inwards. That means to say my mind, intellect, analysis, ego, these are all part of chitta, and then my limbs, my sensory organs perceiving, interacting, my connecting with the world outside, it's all due to prana. So the body makes only sense if you open your eyes and see. If you close your eyes, then there is no body at all. Body seems to be like a support. Like we are standing on the earth, like that body is like we are standing here. So body is not really a consequence in Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali's methodology. And that's how variously Indian philosophy also takes that view. So therefore, whatever that the practice he has given are at the body level when you look at it, he said sadhana, yama niyama asana pranayama pratyahara, dharana dhyana samadhi. These are the Ashtanga Yoga, 8 different limbs. Yama niyama is the disciplines at the interaction level, and as we are, what are the disciplines we need to have in our way of life? The second thing what he has given is the idea called as the then it comes to the asana. Asana, the body level, what Patanjali gives us is only the idea that you adapt a posture which is stable, steady, not disturbing, and with certain amount of further precision, like your body should be straight, back, neck, and head in one line. This even Bhagavad Gita Krishna also said. So that's all the way that it is confined to. It's only confined to that much. He did not elaborate in the asanas or practices and all that. Asana, he means only the position that you sit down. The position that you sit down such a way that the body does not unnecessarily call your attention. If you are in a very precarious condition, if you are in such in an odd way, you might sit maybe for about half a minute or 1 minute, 2 minutes, then immediately body calls your attention. Place yourself in such a way that the body does not call for your attention. But at the same time, the position that you keep your body should be in such a way that it also maintains your awareness. Because we are normally habituated when you lie down to go to bed, sleep, or some other position where I am in a comfortable couch, something like that when I'm sitting, my attention will not be there on the body. I can fall asleep. So therefore, another thing important idea that he thought about is that we must have awareness, a posture which can give you awareness. Very simple idea physiologically when you look at it, which maintains your awareness is when your back is straight, stiff, not straight but not stiff. So back, neck and head in one line. If I'm sitting like that, then I will have awareness, one thing, because the nervous system is what the back contains about. The second thing is that the gravity will not act too much on me. In the sense that I sit down so that my body is balanced on both the sides. So it takes care of itself at every level, and then gravity will not act on me. Other than just placing me on the ground, the gravity has no other business on me. The same thing, if you are not symmetrical against the center line of the body, and if your back is not straight, then gravity can act on the system. Like for example, little, if you loosen your back, you sit down for meditation, close your eyes, there's a tendency that you fall forward. That means gravity is acting on you. So, therefore, these are the things which he gives the idea, saying that Sthira Sukhamasana is steady, but at the same time it is comfortable. And then there is no effort involved in that, Prayatna Shaithilya. These are the two principles that he gives. There is another Upanishad also which talks about asana. He says asana is something where you have unwavered, undisturbed awareness. So that means you are aware, you are not falling asleep. That is the simple idea. When you put these two things together, that is where Patanjali stops at the body level. Body is like a tool, that's all. He did not go into the details. And then he goes into management of prana and then mind. This is how Patanjali proceeds in the asana, in the Ashtanga Yoga. Then what happened? That's why you see after the first sutra, third sutra asana, then he says pranayama, then pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Nothing to do with the body. Commentator wrote just little clarification on that, saying that asana basically means that siddhasana, padmasana. That means these are few postures where your spine is naturally straight. Like in Vajrasana, you try to keep the spine is natural in Vajrasana. To sit like this is more difficult in Vajrasana. So spine is naturally straight. Padmasana, the lotus position also, back is naturally straight. So therefore, these are the postures. He did not mention anything beyond that, commentator. So that is the portion. But then what happened? Patanjali has given several thousands of years ago, 3,000 years ago, and the practices have always been there before even Patanjali has given. And these practices in the lower parts of Himalayas or the central part of Himalaya, which is supposed to be the area called as the Nath Parampara, that means the group of Nathas. Natha is a school of yoga, school of meditation. These Natha Parampara, which are in the upper parts of UP, Uttar Pradesh, and then in the foothills of Himalayas, these are the people, full of forest and full of hills, ups and downs, and the people who are living there, they had to negotiate a lot of terrain problem, then cold, and another thing is the food is also difficult because they don't grow proper vegetables and all that. They would eat whatever that is nature provides there in the form of roots of the plants and this and that. So naturally there is another problem for them is that they would upset their stomach. Because they negotiate all these rights and all that, they had back problem and then they had stomach problem, digestive problem because of position like that. So if they are the people who are trying to do meditation and yogis and all that, for them this body becomes like a hurdle. So therefore the religious group called as Nath Parampara, and which contains the people who are there in Nath Parampara is Adinath, Matsyendranath, Gorakhnath. These are all the various people who are there as a spiritual seekers. They had come up with some local kind of practices which can help them free from their health conditions. So they, like for example, you do this particular posture, you sit like that and then twist yourself. When you do that, then your gastric problems will go away. These are the simple idea that they have given, and that twisting given by Gorakhnath. So therefore we say, Matsyendranath. Therefore we call it as Matsyendrasana, Matsyasana. So these are all the things which are given by the. Later on, their student, and his name is Swatmarama, he said all these practices which they have been practicing for years, maybe thousands of years, let me compile them in the form of a book. so that these practices, not only in the foothills of Himalayas, anywhere else, if people have any problems with their stomach and digestive system, problem with their breath, problem with their respiratory conditions and all that, they can use this. So that compilation of the book is called as Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Okay? And while writing that Hatha Yoga Pradipika, again and again he mentions that please don't take me to be independent yoga. I am giving this yoga in support of Patanjali Yoga Sutras. They help you to see that in Ashtanga Yoga you will be able to practice. So it is always mentioned as a support for Ashtanga Yoga, because Ashtanga Yoga also mentions the Yama Niyama Asana Pranayama. Hatha Yoga Pradipika also mentioned Asana Pranayama and also meditation, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Even though they mentioned all those things again and again, Hatha Yoga Pradipika Adhar has given that this is no separate yoga. This is Patanjali Yoga only, and these are the practices which can help in Patanjali Yoga. But then later on people, they made these two separate. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika, whatever that he has written, they call it as Hatha Yoga. And then Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali became separate. Though they were not separate, but then they became separate in the people's mind. And then Hatha Yoga Pradipika, people started looking at its only physical order practices like asanas, bandhas, kriyas. This contains Hatha Yoga Pradipika. But in Hatha Yoga Pradipika also Yama Niyama are there. In Hatha Yoga Pradipika also Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi is there. But people somehow got into an idea that Hatha is a practice where you do the physical asanas, because number of asanas are mentioned. Even if you look at Hatha Yoga Pradipika, there are hardly about 70-80 asanas are mentioned there. But then while mentioning the asanas in Hatha Yoga Pradipika, they said, you do this kind of an asana and this is good for your digestive system. That's all. And this is good for your joints. Like that they have given the mention. So now there are several, while describing one asana, like I'm just giving as an example, Vajrasana, they said good for digestive system. Ajamachendrasana, good for digestive system. Like that they have given. But then people thought that Hatha Yoga Pradipika is giving us yoga therapy. What are the yoga practices that are good for health reasons? But that was not his focus. The focus is always to see that how you can take further on to all these practices. So therefore, basically, and another important aspect is that what we call it as bandhas and mudras, all these practices, Hatha Yoga Pradipika gives them under the title of Pranamaya Kosha. That means prana practices. Why? When you look at it, if you are holding the stomach and rotating and all that in the Nauli, you are not physically holding it and rotating it. You are using the inner force, life force, inner energy to move that. And that inner energy is prana. So therefore he says that this is prana practice. Under prana is given. And he is very correct. We have put them in the physical practices, but if you look at it, they are not physical practice. They are happening inside your. Similarly, you do the Mula Bandha. Mula Bandha that you do from inside. It's not anything that you do outside. You can't just put your hand and then hold it tight. Nothing like that. So therefore, Patanjali, what Swatmarama has given us, these are all the prana practices. Asana, physical postures are all supposed to be the physical practices, Annamaya Kosha practices. So this is what very clearly Hatha Yoga Pradipika has given. And then Hatha Yoga Pradipika did not give extraordinary importance to the physical postures. Whatever he has given, some 84 asanas or something like that, they are the things that are there. It is learned from various teachers, and by the time he came, Swatmarama, he has already passed through all that, therefore he has compiled that. Later on, people try to do permutation combination, that you do this posture, but also incorporate that posture. And they gave a new name for that, another name for that. Like that, it went on multiplying. Today, when you go to Hatha Yoga book, then you have 200-300 asanas. And it's easy that you put your hand together like this, you stretch it, this is one asana. You hold the hand under the feet and then put the feet up, another asana. So you can, number of combinations that you can make it. Other day I was watching somebody's video, it says that he sit like that and then put the hand like that. I said, this is an asana. Are, what is that asana? He said, yeah, it's my name, because I invented this asana. So it went on multiplying that way. And so yoga teachers are there taking advantage of all these things. Otherwise, Hatha Yoga and Patanjali Yoga Sutras are which is basically called as Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is the main thing, and Hatha Yoga. Actually, there was no Hatha Yoga, it was Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Yoga Pradipika with the idea of prana behind it, and that is Hatha. Ha is inhalation or inward, and Hatha is external. These are the two things that are there. It became like Hatha Yoga.
You have a question?
And also there is one more thing is, Patanjali gives us 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. In that, tapasvadhyaya, these things like, for example, ahimsa, satya, steya, brahmacharya, yama. Niyama also like that. In Swatmarama, in Hatha Yoga Pradipika, he used, I think, 7 yamas and 7 niyamas, or 10 yamas and 10 yamas. That means he can just add some and then just subtract them. Basically, at that point of time, in that region where he was, probably at that condition, what are the things which are supposed to be the disciplines you could have it, he listed them. So that means it's not very rigid that you only have this 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. It can be flexible. That's how they are there.
And what about the physical practice or postures?
Physical postures, Patanjali did not mention anything, but Hatha Yoga Pradipika mentioned these practices. And Hatha Yoga Pradipika, when they mentioned, they did not mention as, the categories what we make it, standing and sitting postures and this and that. It's all later on people made it. But otherwise, he just only list of asanas he has given, and then according to that, these practices are given. But then there is another very important component in Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Probably it is good to know about that. That is, there is a psychophysiological conditions and ideas, rules that are there, which has to be taken into account. Like, for example, an animal got a shape of that particular animal because basically there are certain psycho conditions which made that physiological possible. So even within us also, in the human being also, that our psychology has a great influence in what way our physiology is shaped. A very simple condition is that if somebody is depressed and somebody is having no self-esteem, you see such a person, his chest will go back, shoulders will come forward, he will bend down, he will droop. See, this physiological condition came because of psychological issues. Where at the moment you say, come on, sit with the spine, with the back stretch up and then chest out. When we say that, just by sitting in that posture, he feels, yes, confident in himself. Like that, there are studies which are done saying that by the way that you are walking, they can understand your psychology. By the way that you are sitting, they can understand your psychology. By the way that you are eating the food, you can understand the psychology. So that means to say, psychophysiological conditions are connected. After all, we are together, mind and body, we are together. So these are the things which are based on that. They said that not only in the human being, in the consciousness itself, there are certain things which are identified with certain species, because that's also their psychology, and the species psychology and the species physiology are connected. Like, for example, a snake. if you look at a snake which has got the venom, you see the snakes walk slowly, and the snakes raise the head, hood very clearly, and they stand there. This is what is the cobra, venomous snake. Whereas the snakes which are non-poisonous, they will be always wriggling on the floor and then going away because that they want to save themselves. That means to say the shape, everything is dependent upon the psychology of the as a snake, whatever the facilities that are there. In the animals also like that, when you look at a dog which is a very strong person dog, you can see that the dog is standing straight, even in the street dogs, and they become leader. And the dog which has gone through a lot of health, security issues, safety issues, and all that, you can see that they will always be drooping and then coming down, and then they try to hide behind. So this is what they have seen. So then they said, if you want to really make yourself strong, then there are postures, physiological postures connected with that animals are this thing, and then make you do that so that you develop the strength. Like for example, the cobra pose and all that. Cobra stands straight almost like 8, 9, full length, 6 feet, it stands and up like that. But the cobra is something which does not have any bone. It has no bone structure. So that means to say it stands purely by its energy, not by any structure. So therefore, if I make you to do the cobra posture repeatedly, I can develop your inner strength. So this is psychophysiological ideas. Scriptures mentioned it. See, by doing this, that you develop your self-strength. Like that mentioning is there here and there. So that aspect is also considered in the postures. For a person who is completely lost of self-confidence and then he does not have any pride of himself, to say, all right, do back-bending posture, Ardha Chakrasana, wheel posture. All that when you do, naturally you open up the chest, and then more and more practices like that help you to see that you grow those qualities.
So there is a psychology behind all the asanas. For example, when you perform certain asanas and you don't feel
Yes.
comfortable by doing it, but
Right.
before you were used to do it.
Right. So by suggesting those kind of practices, which can also not only help at the physiological level, but can also contribute towards your psychology, we suggest that kind of thing. A lot of people come to me and then they have some, they come to counseling. And counseling, I look at that and say that, okay, try to do this Bhujangasana or Shalabhasana or these things. They will definitely improve in that way.
Thanks.
Yeah.
In YIC,
Yeah.
they taught us that in Hatha Yoga, you start with Kriyas, is that right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about the order of activities in Hatha Yoga?
In any yoga, the order of activities go from gross to subtle. More effort kind of practices to slowly go to the effortless practices. This is order of the practices in any part of yoga that you do it. Gross to subtle, outer to inner, and then practices which are more energy consuming to the less energy consuming. These are the practices that we need to do. So, and in fact, that is what the Patanjali Sutra was in the asana. It says Prayatna Shaitilya Ananta Samapatyabhyam. That means to say, going towards more and more effortlessness is the way that asanas will have to lead you in the direction. So the practice is also to be having those which can be less and less energy consuming. You don't have to put less and more and more energy. That is the way that we need to proceed towards journey. So, if you look at that, and the kriyas are the practices where that you try to do with little more effort in that. It's not ordinary practice. It's like a simple neti kriya if you are trying to do. You see that there is resistance inside. You put the water into the nose, organize yourself properly. The same thing about dhauti and all that, you see that there is much more effort that is involved in that. So therefore, more effortful practices that you start in the beginning, that's what kriyas are there in the beginning. And then what people say that kriyas is a cleansing techniques, but I have a reservation about that. Because a nasal passage you put water and then, you know, do neti. Do you mean to say that that continues like that for next few hours? No. Immediately your mucus develops and then your nose is blocked or this and that. So back to the original one. So really we are not, in fact, mucus not being there is a dangerous condition for our system. Mucus protects us. Not only in the nose, but also in the esophagus, that means the food pipe. You do the Vaman Dhauti Kriya, but then after that, within about half an hour, that your mucus will once again develops. So that's the lining for the food pipe. We need that lining. Similarly, we need a lining for the nasal passage. So that's very healthy kind of a thing. So we are not cleaning anything. But what is very important in Kriyas is that even those muscles which are associated with that will be under your mastery, your control. Like for example, Vaman Dhauti you are doing. As I ask, take some 3-4 glasses of water. Particularly early morning on the empty stomach and you are giving some lukewarm water, that too with the salt, you hate it. That means you don't feel like taking it inside. Throat says, I'm not going to push it inside. But then you say, no, that I'm doing Kriya, I have to do that. What's happening is that in the process that you are able to overcome the inner resistance within you. Understand? Nose, the moment that you think of anything entering into the nose, there is a resistance from inside which is necessary. But then though necessity is there for the resistance, but you should be the master. So actually when you do the Neti Kriya, you are training that master behind it. So you are not doing any desensitizing your nasal passage or this and that. This is totally out of question. That you are the master of this nasal passage, you are the master of digestive system. That is what essentially that you are training. Similarly, Trataka, the moment that you sit down and watch the candle flame, immediately eyes watering and then you feel like blinking your eyes, rubbing your eyes. You know, just sit down, coolly look at it. Then slowly what happens is you are developing your inner mastery. So when you have the inner mastery in one area, you can use any other area also the same mastery. We have seen that. See, somebody whose stomach is upset and this and that, getting easily irritated, do the Vaman Dhauti. Once that inner mastery is there, then he became peaceful. He's not getting irritated. He's not getting disturbed or anything like that. So one area that you control, that you will develop the control over other areas. Therefore, when Hatha Yoga Pratipika gives, Kriyas are given in the beginning so that you start developing the mastery of yourself and recognize that. You are able to do that. You know, you see the people first time that they are doing the Neti Kriya, when they able to go take the water from one nostril, then they're so happy they come and say, yeah, water came through the other nostril, like that. And then similarly, when we give that catheter tube, and the moment that it comes through the mouth, everybody clicks the camera. I did that. So there is confidence in building process, that is, you are a master over yourself. That's very important. Then asana, pranayama, all those things. Then physical level practices on the asanas. Then all these other things, he calls it as prana practices. Hatha Yoga Pradipika.
So starting with Kriya,
Yeah, starting with the Kriyas.
and what comes after Kriya in Hatha Yoga?
In Hatha Yoga, asanas.
Asana.
After the asanas, last we have the bandhas, mudras,
Okay.
and then pranayama, meditation.
What about yamas and niyamas? Do they fit in?
Yamas
there
and
somewhere?
niyamas in the before that, even before
Before
the
the
practice. Yes.
Okay.
And another thing is yamas and niyamas. See, all these kriyas are sometime that you do it one particular period. Asana certain period of time. Yama and niyamas are something which is the basic ground on which that you build all these things.
Every day.
Yeah, every day you have to be all the time practicing that. On one side, I don't want to practice yama niyama, and on the other side, I want to grow in yoga. I'm sorry, that cannot work.
Some teachers in what in America is known.
Yeah.
Ashtanga was
Vinyasa.
founded by Patavi Yogi.
Yeah,
And there is a misconception in
right.
all we think
Yeah.
Ashtanga belongs to Patavi Yogi's lineage.
Mm.
So
Actually, first person who coined the name called as Ashtanga is Patanjali. Patanjali Yoga Sutra, 8 limbs are called as Ashtanga. And this Ashta, 8, has got a deeper significance also, in the sense that there is one great saint who was supposed to be Ashtavakra, was a saint. And that means that he had deformities in body at 8 different places. So those days, 8 are also significant for your chakras. Later on it became 6 chakras, but otherwise 8 chakras for the consideration. That means chakras are the places where your energy diffuses, your energy works in that direction. So at 8 different places, that like for example, I'm talking, there is one chakra, digesting food, another chakra, so like that. So if you have problems at all these 8 different places, it is called as 8 discomfort. That is what is Ashtavakra. So saint is supposed to have that 8 different places, deformities, but then in spite of it he was a saint. That means to say the body is just only a vehicle. Don't pay too much attention to body, because a person who had 8 kind of deformities in his body, he is also a realized person. He is also a great person. In fact, there is a very beautiful story about him. Very nice. This Ashtavakra, a boy, and 8 different places he had all those deformities. Birth deformities, congenital. His mother and his father was a great scholar, Pandit, and there was a king by name Janaka. He was organizing a congregation of these great scholars. So his father was speaking actually in that congregation, and then there were hundreds of Pandits were there in the audience because they are very learned scholars, so they are listening to him. He is super intelligent guy. So, but then he is giving a talk, and then his mother, Ashtavakra's mother, she was waiting for the husband to come home for lunch. And then she sends this boy, hey, go and see your dad. I don't know how long he has come. Just alert him that the food is ready, he can come for food anytime. So this boy goes to that place where all this congregation is going on. When he was walking towards that tent where all this is going on, the people who were there in the audience, they looked at him and then they laughed. They laughed. And then, but anyway, this boy did not get upset by that. He went to dad. He said, Dad, mom is waiting for food. Why don't you come? No, I am teaching these people about high philosophy. Let me finish this philosophy teaching for today and then come. Then this boy says, what are you teaching this high philosophy you said to these people who are cobblers? Cobbler means, one who stitches a shoe. What is that you are teaching that high philosophy to these cobblers? Immediately dad got angry, looked at the son, 10-year-old son. Hey, should not say that. These are all pandits. They are pandits and you should not say that. It's derogatory. It's blasphemous. You should not say that. But then the king Janaka, he heard that, and then after all that is over, he called this boy and asked, why did you say them that they are cobblers? Immediately this boy replied, a very intelligent reply he gave is that a cobbler or the shoemaker, his whole focus is on the skin and the hide. You see? And then these people, you say pandits are supposed to be having intellect, but then their whole perception is only on my body, which has got different deformities. They are looking at my body. They are not looking at my soul. They are not looking at my. Therefore, I said that they are cobblers. Wow, the king was simply mesmerized. He said, my God, you are thinking something which is unique and extraordinary. You must be very knowledgeable. So he said like that. Next day, the king came to this boy. He said, can you teach me philosophy? Then he taught the philosophy to him. And that's a whole, it's another Gita. It's a very high level Gita called as Ashtavakra Gita. The teaching Ashtavakra gave to Janaka in the form of very high philosophy. That's also a text. It's very interesting. There, he teaches in the first chapter, he gives various ideas of Brahman and the nature, the nature forces and all that. And he said like that, and then ultimately he said that you are that Brahman and you are that master beyond all these things, and that's what is your consciousness is all about. King said, yes, wonderful. Now when king said wonderful, right, I just now told you idea and you say already wonderful, that means you understood. The king said, yes, I understood what you said, I understood. But this boy did not have confidence. The king is also just saying outside, has he really understood? In the second chapter of Ashtavakra Gita, he actually tests the king how much he has learned. And he found satisfied that the king has really learned. Just by one time that I'm telling this thing, the king already learned.
There's so much learning in children.
Yeah. Children are naturally, they are in the supreme Brahmic state, highest level. See, that's why they don't have any attachment, disturbances. Like the way a child looks at something and then says to, in the shopping mall someplace, says, I want that. Oh, get me that. Mother says, look at that, the bird is flying there. He looks at, forgets about this thing. That means he has no attachment. His attention is diverted there, he is diverted there. That's all. It is very peaceful.
How can we do as a mindful parents to keep our children in their natural state? Like
Yeah,
we know we have to guide them, to
yeah.
teach some things, but
Mm.
to have that spirit, that innocent.
Yeah. Uh, Two ways that we need to do it. One way is that constantly make them feel that they are complete, they are full, and they are extraordinary, they are unique. Not that in comparison with anybody else. They, as themselves, they are unique and they are full. I am better than that fellow is the way that the world teaches. We should teach them, no. In fact, he is wonderful, fine, but you are wonderful. My interest is only in you. You are great, and you have a lot of qualities that are there. This is one aspect we do it. Second aspect that we need to do for the children is that a thing is there or not. Something that you expected happens or not. Always make him to feel that, look, all these things, they are peripheral and they don't have to disturb you at the core. Child remains undisturbed at the core. Well, they're satisfied the way that he is. It's so beautifully said by one of the saints. He said that read Bible, understand Bible, and look at Christ. But you and follow Jesus Christ said. But then ultimately you become yourself. You don't have to become Christ. Read Vivekananda, understand Vivekananda, but don't become Vivekananda. You become yourself. Because if God wanted Vivekananda, He could have created another Vivekananda. If He wanted another Jesus, He would have created. He wanted you specifically. You have to become what you are, not you have to become somebody else. You don't have to paint yourself by stripes on your body. If you are zebra, you are zebra. Otherwise, you are fine, what you are. You don't have to be zebra everywhere.
Yeah.
So, any questions?
Question. I made this question about Hatha and Ashtanga because there is we get identified in other places as no, this is a Hati yogi, or this is Ashtanga yogi.
Yeah.
But it's Ashtanga just because the physical practice.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That is complete. I have not yet completed that. So basically, Ashtanga Yoga originally is given by Patanjali. Later on, because Ashta means 8, Anga means limbs, many people, they just put some 8 different limbs together and made a garland of practices, and they call it Ashtanga Yoga. So like that, there is also movement of the body, continuous movement, which is called as in dance, in Indian dance, the flow movement that you create is what is called as vinyasa.
Yes.
So therefore, what he has done, Pattabhi Jois has done is he selected some 8 different practices, or maybe few 8 different practices, because there is a flow in that, it's called as vinyasa. So he called it as Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga. Why I'm saying like that is that I have come across somebody showing some postures of 8 postures in a nice flow, repeated. It is repeating by itself, and he calls it as Ashtanga Vinayasa Yoga. And somebody else, he was doing same Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, but the postures were different. The combination was different. Then I thought that many different combinations we can work out.
Mysore practice, Mysore.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
But only thing is practice like a flow. Vinyasa, then you call it Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga. Fortunately, those days are even till today also in the field of yoga, there is nothing like you, there is no copyright on that, Ashtanga Yoga. Therefore, people adopt that name.
Yes, and it's very confusing
Yeah,
for us to other
Right.
countries. Even
Yes.
here in India, you have so many different practices.
yeah,
Can you imagine how it becomes for us to get what is the real source?
yeah,
That's why the philosophy is very important.
very important. I don't blame the people in the West. I blame our own teachers who have not explained these things clearly. In the society, everything existed because the people understood very clearly. One is not against the other. That
Yes.
was not clearly explained.
Thank you very much. You have a question?
I remember in reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna that he was often said disparaging things about Hatha yogis and would kick them out or not see them. Why was that?
See, one thing is that, yeah, okay. Yeah. So, why it happened like that was that See, many times when people come and learning a particular line of thinking, see, I am giving some particular line of thinking and all that, it's okay. An order is okay. Suddenly, if somebody comes and he tries to give a different line of thinking, different idea, and all that, the person who is learning gets confused. We don't want any other person to unnecessarily come and interfere with that. So that's why probably that he did not allow Hatha Yogis to come. Second thing is that those people who think that they know it, they come and then raise the question of uh, unnecessary argumentation. And it says that no science, no knowledge can grow by argumentation. Vado navalambhya, Upanishad says. Because basically what happens, argument, if you look at it, intellect is for the truth, for the wisdom. Argument is to prove that my point is right.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the intellect and argumentation. And the people who come there to argue, please, you are right, okay, you can go now. You don't have to be here. Simple. Don't get into argumentation.
I thought of those Ramakrishna stories when you told me the story about your uncle
Yeah.
and when you wanted to learn from him and then you saw him with the Hatha Yogi.
Yeah.
I thought it was the same thing.
Right. See, what happens is Hatha Yoga is fine to some level, but beyond that, there's no journey. I've seen people in several yoga teachers about 20, 30 years ago that they have come to India, they learned Hatha Yoga, physical practice and all that, went back to USA, and then they gave this practice of yoga maybe about 5, 10, 15 years. But then they feel that much what they are giving in the form of postures is shallow. It's not taking them anywhere. They said, we want to learn about philosophy. Actually, that was my mistake. Then when people came, appreciated my philosophy, I said, when I gave the philosophy, they said, wow, you are 20 years, you are a yoga teacher, and then now you appreciate the philosophy behind it. I'm really glad about it. I said, what you are talking about? America always appreciated philosophy because America is the person who have given approval to Vivekananda. 100 years ago, we have approved Vivekananda because he was given philosophy. Wow, it's so true. What that lady said was so clear, so true. And thank God,
Seeing them as separate things
Yeah.
maybe is the problem. That we don't see how everything is united.
Yes. Yes.
That there's not philosophy and physical practice. They're all part of the same.
Part of the
whole
same.
practice.
Yes. Journey. It's all part of the. You see, this is one thing that we need to understand. Any activity that we do will have a science behind it or the philosophy behind it. Without that philosophy, that an activity will not happen. A very simple thing, I want to make a kite to see that it flies in the sky. And then I have to learn how to make a kite because it has a knowledge behind it. Without, I will offer you a cup of coffee. For making a cup of coffee, I need to have technology or the knowledge behind making the coffee. Then only it can come out all right. See, any small activity should have philosophy behind it. And yoga is such a lifestyle activity. It must have philosophy behind it. But people neglected that. That's what happened in the process. And it is not only at that time, even today's teachers are also, there are some very famous teachers who say that my way is highway. Don't go the other paths. Don't even try the other methods. That's what they say.
They say you should choose one path and stick to it.
Stick to
Right.
it. Fine, but that is because that your nature and that path matches. But not because of any other reason, because this path is the only golden path. No. Every path is wonderful, but this path is for me.
Mm.
I like this. Like, for example, I give such convincing talks about whether Karma Yoga, whether it is Raja Yoga, or all those things. But if you ask me personally, what is that one path, which is basically that you adapted for your nature right from the childhood, it is Bhakti path. Bhakti is for me extraordinary. It's for me. I don't want to insist on everybody. Bhakti is the game. Within that bhakti, if you ask me, what is that which really made appeal bhakti for you? One thing that I can share about that is that in other parts, there is so eloquently did not say about dissolution of ego. Bhakti directly says, dissolve your ego. It is the unnecessary thing that you carry, burden on your head.
Mm.
We can have the four streams of yoga in our personality, but there is one that stick to us predominant. As a predominant.
Yes,
But
right.
we can still have ego, and some of us call ourselves as a bhakti yogis because the ego starts when I am associating myself with something. So if I call myself as a bhakti yogi, the ego is still there.
It's still there. Yes, attached to that. It's all there.
Bhakti is said to be the easiest path.
Yeah, when I talk about bhakti, I say it is the easiest path.
Do you think?
But you know what? When I'm selling my product, I have to market it. Krishna also did something when he's talking about jnana. He says, "Oh, there is nothing equivalent to jnana." He says, "Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitram vadyate." Like that in Bhagavad Gita. When it comes to bhakti, he says, "Yeah, bhakti is the most." And when he talks about Karma Yoga, the amount of details that he goes to Karma Yoga, wow, it's extraordinary. Once I was giving one yoga teachers training program in Houston, and they were supposed to submit one worksheet at the end of the whole class on chosen topic. So one lady came and then she chose the topic. I'll write my essay on Raja Yoga. Okay. Then I gave talk on Yama Niyama and all that. Third day she came, Raghuramji, I think I will change my topic to Yama Niyama, not whole of Raja Yoga, because there's so much to cover. And then I said the Karma Yoga topics. I think, my choice is Karma Yoga, not Raja Yoga. Because I can really put the ideas very clearly. I talked about Raja, then Jnana Yoga. She said, wow, Jnana Yoga is so wonderful. I think today itself I sat down and write my report on Jnana Yoga. Last day when I talked about Bhakti Yoga, she came and said, no, I think I will have to write on Bhakti Yoga, but I'm really confused now what to do. So you present an idea in such a way that that idea should appeal. Generally, that idea will appeal to everybody, but then for somebody for whom that idea is cut, again, connected, it stays with that person as his sadhana. All other parts are impressively presented, but at the same time, according to your nature, what you feel, you can follow it. That becomes like a path of yours. There, what happens is that you don't have any negativity about other practices. Okay? Everybody is wonderful, but you chose your path because that's what has an appeal for you. Whereas in fact, I say, to convince you about bhakti, I don't have to condemn Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga. I don't have to do that. I can only present glorified way of Raja, Jnana and Bhakti Yoga. People like it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Happy Teacher's Day.